Subscribe today, Tommy, if you love movies.
Hey, look at boobies! I like movies. Hey, Cinema Gulp, where are ya? Help!
Hey, take it easy.
But I lost Cinema Gulp.
Stay calm. Just go to YouTube to subscribe and hit the bell for all the latest videos.
Hey, we're Cinema Gulp and we drink your cinema.
Thanks, Joe. Now I can subscribe.
And subscribing is half the battle.
And this is the worst year in 27 years for movies, in my
You've got to be kidding me.
But 2018 was a pretty weak year, in my opinion. Thought it was shit. Terrible. Worst year of the decade, probably.
Look out, nice. What are you doing? Every eyes will look from him can paralyze.
String of three, let's play for candy.
Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-doo.
Ready?
Fucking born ready.
Hello, and welcome to the barren wasteland that is 2023's cinema landscape. We're here to talk about the best of 2023 in movies.
Sounding to me, John, like you don't have a whole large selection to choose from.
No, I don't. I kind of have, to be honest, it was hard to come up with a list of 5 best pictures. I was actually going to approach this and say, sorry, Ben, I only have 4. And see how that went. But I squeezed one into that 5th slot just to make sure we round out our top 5.
Good.
But to be honest, I could talk about the same 5 movies the whole time because there aren't very many that fell out of that top 5 that I have much to say about. But let's talk about movies.
Yeah, so see, this is interesting because this year, you and I did not get to see that many movies together like we have in many, many years past. So I don't really have any idea what you're thinking aside from maybe one or two, and you probably the same with me. So I will be perfectly honest, and we'll flip this whole script up on its head. I loved this year.
Oh, wow.
I have so many that I kept kicking ones out of the top 5.
Oh, wow.
Well, I love this dynamic we have here because it's different. I mean, we've had years past, like the intro said, where, you know, there's been times, I know our standards are different. I understand that, but also, if movies don't speak to you, then they don't speak to you. You know, I got lucky this year with some filmmakers making shit that I've been dying for them to make again. You know, so let's get started. Do you have anything you want to go through before we get started on the best of?
Yeah. Well, to talk about why I think it was a barren wasteland of cinema this year, I had a lot of disappointments. Movies that. Not all of these are movies that I, thought were going to be best picture quality movies, just movies that I had high hopes for. They sounded like they had fun concepts or had filmmakers behind them that I, love and respect, or are part of franchises that I've been able to enjoy in the past. And I'm not going to say that this is a list of movies that I hate or think are terrible or even the worst of the year in any way. They're just disappointments to me on some kind of level. And I've got ones that go across different genres or whatever, different categories. But I'd say there were a lot of original films that I was hoping to get something good out of, and I was pretty disappointed. I would say Cocaine Bear, Knock at the Cabin, Megan, Last Voyage of the Demeter, Renfield, Elemental, 65, The Creator, which I know I had big high hopes for that, The Killer, David Fincher movie, didn't really love. Rebel Moon, terrible. That one actually could be on one of the worst of the year lists.
That's definitely the worst ongoing.
And then there was like awards favorites and movies that were really respected by a lot of other people, like Barbie, Saltburn, Talk to Me, Maestro, Napoleon, and Killers of the Flower Moon. None of those really did it for me. I didn't hate those movies necessarily, but They certainly did not make it into my top 5 or anywhere close to it. They were disappointments.
Well, I'm definitely
there was-
with you. I'm definitely with you on Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, did
Well,
not live up to the title as the way we wanted.
65 was just horrible.
Yeah. And then there was all the franchise films that I, always have high hopes of. Any entry in a franchise that you've enjoyed in the past, you're always hoping for another good one. Evil Dead Rise, The Exorcist Believer, Flash, Fast and the Furious number 10, Rocky number 9, MCU Factory Output number 8, Mission Impossible number 7, Scream number 6, Indiana Jones number 5, Expendables number 4, Equalizer number 3, Shazam number 2, and Super Mario's Money Making Machine number 1. None of those were any good for me.
I liked a lot of those, but my biggest disappointment of the year was Mission Impossible, because I loved Fallout. I know you didn't quite as much, but now it looks fantastic, right?
It does, actually.
This Mission Impossible movie was just really a mess. It was just a mess. And I don't think it connected with many people, which is why it did not do well at all. And I disagree with you on Fast X. I thought it was just like all the other ones. It's fucking hilarious and fun. But because it also didn't do well, I've just heard that they've cut that budget in half for the next one.
Good.
You know what? That might be a good thing.
Make them work for their audience and get creative and not just put a bunch of CGI nonsense on the screen.
True. I never saw Indiana Jones, but I already know it's a disappointment, so I didn't see it. But yeah, a lot of those. Talk to Me is one of those movies that everyone was just loving, and I just didn't connect with it as much as some other people did. It's no Hereditary, it's no It Follows, but it was being treated as such a lot this year. But we'll get into other movies.
Yeah, I would say Talk to Me and honestly the creator are two that I still respect them for their originality and approach to the subject they were telling, but their stories ultimately had flaws in them that left me wanting more and left me disappointed leaving the theater.
Walking out of the theater with you and Josh during The Creator, I thought I was in the Twilight Zone.
I know.
I loved it, and you guys hated it.
Well, I thought that Josh might have liked it too from just our viewing of it until we started talking, and I was like, I'm going to be the one who's on the outside here, and then he started chiming in that he didn't like it either, and I was like, oh, okay, good. We kind of did see the same movie.
Yeah, he didn't like it at all. I was like, wow, okay. All right, well, there's a lot of stinkers. There's a lot of disappointments, as there is every year. But every year. Let's get into some good stuff, guys.
Are we ready to leave the barren wasteland?
Let's do it.
Head to greener pastures.
Before we do, what were you expecting from Cocaine Bear?
I guess I wanted
it to be funny. Maybe for it to be funny.
Yes, I wanted the humor to hit a bit more because I did expect that. Or it to feel a bit more like a horror monster movie, which it kind of lacked.
The ambulance scene is what the whole movie should have been.
Yeah.
It's bloody, 100%. It's hilarious, but the movie dragged and was boring. And yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started with what we loved, everyone. Starting again this year, John, with Best Screenplay.
You go ahead, go first.
For me, David Henningsen, who was basically a TV writer for over 20 years, did shows like American Dad and Just Shoot Me, wrote The Holdovers. This being what I think is his actual first movie credit as a screenwriter, was just amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was tailor-made to be an Alexander Payne film. It's about connection. It's about finding yourself through others that you never even thought you would know or connect with. It's hilarious. It's touching without any sappiness or schmaltz. I mean, Paul Giamatti, it was like this movie was written for Paul Giamatti to read it. I just think I have a lot of screenplays I thought were really good this year. But this one, to me, it's just hands down. And I heard it got like some like, oh, this movie's like a warm hug or whatever people are saying. I'm like, well, is that a bad thing? Like, who cares? You know, it works as a Christmas movie. It works as a coming of age movie. I love coming of age movies where you have a kid who's coming of age and you also have someone who is well past like his midpoint in his life, finding out new stuff about himself, and he can do more. And he does have higher morals and things, you know. He's not just a stinker, grumpy old guy. I loved the screenplay to The Holdovers.
He is a stinker, but that's not totally his
No,
fault.
he smells like
Medical
fish.
Condition.
Smells like fish, yeah. Which is such a great little add-on to the movie.
Ben, I'm right there with you. I have two things written down for screenplay. One of them is The Holdovers. I totally agree. It's one of the best screenplays of the year. I think it is a warm hug, and we can use that at this time. It's totally fine. It's heartbreaking and heartwarming all at the same time, with a ton of humor brought into it. I agree with you. It feels like a script that was always meant for Alexander Payne and Paul Giamatti to team up and make this movie. It's like Paul Giamatti has put in a lot of good performances, but I think a lot of us would agree that Sideways is one of his most iconic ever. And so to be able to get this reteaming of that connection right there and put out such a great film, put out a film that I think will be remembered as one of Alexander Payne's best. So yeah, The Holdovers for me, one of the best screenplays.
I'm really happy to hear you say that. Yeah.
Great dialogue.
I wish we could have seen that movie together. You know?
Yeah, well, you I think saw it and was like, it's so good, you got to go see it. So I did. That was one that I like made the time. I maybe would have waited for video. I guess I probably would have seen it before now, so it still would be something that I'm speaking highly of. But I went and caught it back in the theater right around the time you said it was great, and I'm glad I did, because
you know what's interesting about it too, just from an exterior standpoint. Alexander Payne movies are very small, limited releases. They always have been. They always will be. He's an indie filmmaker that finds a distributor later. This movie, though not nearly as financially successful as Sideways, did the same thing. Opened up tiny and started to rise in the box office from word of mouth. Week after week after week, it kept going up, and very few movies do that.
My next favorite screenplay I'm going to bring up is Oppenheimer. I don't know. I got lots of accolades to throw at Oppenheimer throughout this video, but the screenplay is the starting point for any project. And I believe Nolan wrote it, right? He always writes this.
He wrote it with another guy. Yeah, his brother.
With his brother or somebody else, but whoever. Nolan's amazing, with everything that he does. But I really like. It's a fascinating story. It's fascinating person and moment in history that has not been brought to the screen, at least in this way. There's been some other movies that did deal with Oppenheimer or the creation of the bomb, but this one was just the most interesting and fascinating. It's also very informative for something that is filled with so much science that I clearly would not understand. They were able to dumb it down, but not make it stupid. Like, nothing Nolan does is stupid. It's always actually very intelligent. And sometimes you're like scratching your head of like, what the heck are the concepts being discussed in this movie? But they found a way. There's still stuff I totally didn't fully understand what they were discussing, but it was made in a way where a layman like myself could follow along in every scene and feel the tension build through just dialogue and whether it's leading up to the actual testing of the bomb or even beyond, when it's dealing with like the courtroom stuff and the legacy of Oppenheimer and how he's going to be viewed by the American public. They're always able to build the tension all the way till the final moments of the movie. Even the finale of the movie has you on the edge of your seat for the world we live in, of like the realization of, yes, I guess the final lines are like, we really did start the chain reaction that's going to destroy the world. And that hits home even 40, 50 years later, whatever we're at, 70 years later, wherever the fuck we're at now. So Oppenheimer, just that movie's great. That movie's great. I'll have more to say about it as we go throughout the videos.
You always know a good screenplay when every single actor that comes on screen has not only a standout moment, but just shines. I didn't even know Josh Hartnett was in this movie, and he was the best he's ever been in his life in this small part that he had, because it was written well. He had a nice character to play, and he respected that. Coming next, favorite theater experience of the year.
Okay, well, my favorite movie-going experience was The Abyss. Getting a chance to see The Abyss for the first time ever on the big screen. It's my fourth favorite movie of all time. I'm a huge James Cameron fan. So I was very excited to get this one night only opportunity to go see it on a really nice size screen. But what was most impressive was the sound system. I don't remember what they call it. The
RPX
or something. But I don't know that I'd ever seen anything in that theater and had that exact sound system. And it was freaking awesome. The seats were shaking without some stupid motorized bullshit kicking you in the back. Yeah, and then the movie itself, as I've said, it's my fourth favorite. So clearly, I love it. You know, to the top of the mountain. It's one of the best ever made. It's got one of the best scene in all of cinema, in my opinion. So I got a little munchkin crawling on my back here. Hi, buddy.
Yo, James.
So yeah, The Abyss, made by James Cameron,
Yep.
was my favorite movie going experience.
My favorite movie going experience of this year was The Abyss and RPX as well. Not only everything that John just said, that's one of the best sound qualities of any movie I've ever seen in my life on the screen, on the big screen. And another thing, like you said last year, we got to see it with friends. You know, we got to see it with friends and their kids, and you get to see like what point the kids are interested and what points they're not interested. In a close second, I'd have to say seeing Die Hard and The Birds on the big screen was really an amazing experience. So they're all movies.
All the classics.
Yeah.
Nothing new. Well, to be honest, Ben, my second favorite viewing experience of the year was Die Hard.
Yeah, it was so badass. Yeah, I
and
hadn't
you and
seen that in the theater before, so.
Yeah, I had never seen that in the theater as well. So now, and that's my seventh favorite movie. So I'm knocking them off the list of the ones I had never seen for my favorites. We got to see Jaws last year, which was also in my top 10. But I think you and I both agreed, for some reason, seeing it in the theater made it much funnier than it had ever been before.
Yeah.
I mean, we've both seen it probably hundreds of times. And there were just certain jokes that had never really hit, or at least hit with an actual audible laugh, like it did in the theater.
Yeah.
So
I agree. We mentioned that. We're like, this is almost like a buddy cop comedy in certain.
Yeah. It added a new dimension. Like, not that I didn't know the movie had humor, but I can almost see it as an action comedy now in ways that I never looked at it that way before. And the fact that it's like the best Christmas movie, it now has all these facets that it's just the best at.
Now it's officially a Christmas movie because they re-released it during the holidays. But
yeah, we got to see it as a Christmas movie in the Christmas holiday quarter.
Everything you're saying that you didn't notice about it, it just shows you the magic and the power of seeing something in the theater because you're completely immersed into it. There's a huge difference, and that's part of it. And for me, aside from the humor, I didn't realize the charisma of a young Bruce Willis had. Like, I remember walking out of that and telling you guys, God, he is so good in this. Like, he's just bringing it, and he's such a young guy who didn't at the time know he was going to be a big action star. Moving on, funniest movie of the year. Okay, for me, hands down, I base this on the fact, John, that I could not stop laughing during the entire duration of the movie. Slaughterhouse.
Oh, okay.
It's the funniest movie I've seen in a long time. It's intentionally funny, and it works in that regard. I know it's not a quality movie, but it made me laugh more than anything I've seen this year. And it was intentional. It's basically a comedy. I mean, it's just this big, goofy puppet sloth running around killing people. It was hilarious, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I couldn't stop laughing. I love Slaughterhouse, and I will always defend it. It's a great Halloween movie. It's a great comedy. It's PG-13, but it's very violent. And you know, though it doesn't have the boobs and blood thing, it has a lot of violence. And it just the funny. It's from filmmakers that really understand what they're making, and somehow it just works. And I tell people, go see Slaughterhouse. I think it's free on streaming or whatever, but it's just so goddamn funny. It's such a good time.
Is it a rabid sloth? Like, what is the?
Yeah, it's like a sloth that's got like extra strength that like hitched a ride from the jungle or whatever, and it's just in a sorority house killing people, and it's really great. It's just great.
Well, it might have to be on one of our Halloween mixers.
I'm not making a joke pick. It's literally the funniest movie of the year. You know, I thought American Fiction was hilarious. I thought The Holdovers was hilarious. I thought Dungeons and Dragons was hilarious. But Slaughterhouse just takes the cake because I was never not laughing for an hour and a half. So.
Nice. Well, I'm intrigued. Well, you named my funniest movie of the year, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it was right up there.
Yeah, I did not see too many true comedies this year. But I was laughing the whole time. I was super entertained, even with the stupid vibrator up my ass kicking me in the back. I think I've rewatched it on video. But yeah, it's hilarious. Great characters. Hugh Grant's really funny. Chris Pine's really funny. Every character,
Fat
finds ways
dragon.
to be
The fat
humorous.
dragon is so
Fat
great.
dragon. It had a great subversion of expectations all throughout the movie, and that's what I really liked about it in humorous ways.
That's a good one too. I had that up there for a while, but in the end, like a couple of
Slaughterhouse had to take the cake.
So moving on, favorite performers of the year. You can start.
So if I was going to single out any one performance, I think it would be Cillian Murphy, who actually shows up.
There he is.
In this picture. Well, you know what? I'm going to single out two because they're both right there. Right there. Cillian Murphy and Emma Stone. I think I watched a review that you might have did, like the leftover wrap-up thing, where you talked about how fearless, amazing the things that she was willing to do in this movie, Emma Stone. I think she would be winning Best Actress, and I think Cillian Murphy would be winning Best Actor. I love both their performance. I think Cillian Murphy's is my favorite of them all over the year. I said that coming out of Oppenheimer, that I sure hope something else doesn't come out that's a bit more flashy, that gets the win. And as of right now, I think he has a good shot. I think it's him and Paul Giamatti who have the best chances as winning Best Actors. And either one of them, I would be super happy. They gave great performances. They're owed for their careers. They're both, excellent actors who I'd be happy to see them win Oscars. But these are performances that I think they certainly could earn the Oscar for, not just be handed because, they gave good performances all throughout their career. Emma Stone for Poor Things, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers. But really, I think the cast in all three of those films are just filled with wonderful performances. I really like in Poor Things, Mark Ruffalo. He's hilarious and schmarmy and just a character that you normally don't see him play, but he did it really well. William Dafoe is just a weirdo, but does a good job with it. All the other side characters are pretty great as well. The people with smaller roles, like the other guy that she's engaged to or whatever, I really liked them all. The Holdovers, the three main casts are great. That young actor it's his first role, the main kid or whatever.
Dominique Sessa.
Okay, is that his name? He's excellent. Joy Randolph or something.
Joy Randolph, yeah.
She's excellent. I think she's probably going to win Best Supporting Actress. Oh, and Robert Downey Jr. I think Robert Downey Jr. should win the Oscar, and that'll be another person that'll be like, come on, this is great. He's finally getting his due. They didn't have to hand it to him for like a Tony Stark role. Not that he's bad there, but like this is a role I think he deserves it, and I'm happy to see that hopefully he's going to win it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. We're very similar. Emma Stone and Paul Giamatti to me are my two favorites. I think this is the performance of Emma Stone's life up to this point. I think she's the best performance of the year for me. But Paul Giamatti's right there, but we've just seen him do this with his eyes closed, but he's so gripping because he's just, I can't.
Have you seen him do this with his eyes crossed?
Well, and I love how people asked about the eyes crossed thing, and he said, you know what, we left it ambiguous. We never came up with a reason for it. It just is. And I love that about him as an actor. He creates a character from the page that is always somebody that even if you don't like him, you love him. You know what I mean? Like and I agree, Robert Downey Jr., like this is one of the best performances he's ever given. And it's really great to see him do this because, after the success of the Iron Man stuff, I think he was kind of tossed aside a little bit. So it's really good.
As a serious actor, right?
Yeah. So it's good to see him do a role like this where he does own every scene he's in. But for me, Emma Stone, Paul Giamatti, top performers for me this year, hands down. So moving on to honorable mentions.
There are no points for second place.
So for action, Extraction 2 and John Wick 4, by far the two best action movies of the year. I can't imagine anybody saying otherwise. The one takes in Extraction 2 are just unbelievable. I think it's the best John Wick movie or best sequel, only behind the first John Wick movie. I think Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage was really funny. It's his best performance since Pig. Not as good as Pig, even though he's getting more accolades for it. Beau is Afraid. I just enjoyed the hell out of 2/3 of that movie.
Which 2/3? Because I only saw I saw the last hour.
I like the first 2/3 of it.
Okay. So I haven't seen the part you liked.
Yeah, I think Ari Aster is amazing, and he's got such a weird mind, and I'm glad people are funding his movies, even though they're expensive. Another great Joaquin Phoenix performance. That's no surprise. The Killer, which you didn't like. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the few movies this year I watched a second time, obviously because it's on streaming. It's easy to do. It's basically a meditation on confidence and code, slowly turning into contempt and loss of focus. I really enjoyed what's his name? Michael Fassbender in it. A Good Person. Great return to form for director Zach Braff. It felt more in the line of Garden State. Some really funny stuff, some really tragic, gut-wrenching shit. Florence Pugh is amazing. Gran Turismo, way better than I was expecting. David Harbour's great. Just a great underdog story. Lastly, right there at number 6, Asteroid City. One of Wes Anderson's best movies in a few years, for sure. I still love it. I still love his creativity. It's on full display. But when is he not creative? It just slipped out of the top 5. So honorable mentions for me.
Dungeons and Dragons, which we already mentioned. To be honest, that would probably be my most rewatchable of what I'm considering my honorable mentions. Air and American Fiction. I was able to catch American Fiction recently and had some good laughs in it, some sharp writing, and yeah, I really liked that one. The Iron Claw was just a really great drama, a story that I
you know myself. What? I apologize. I don't know how that fell off my list, but that was definitely an honorable mention. I don't know how it got erased from my list, but the Iron Claw was great. Yeah.
Okay. We didn't get to see a lot of movies together, but I figured, or I think you talked about it on your leftover, so I knew you had seen it, but I kind of kept it from you knowing that I'd seen it, because it was one I was shielding myself till I could see it, because I didn't want to hear a thing about it, because just one word could lead you to know, well, which brother is the tragedy all about?
Especially that story.
Then when you see it, it's like, oh my God, okay, tragedy upon tragedy upon tragedy. Poor Things, which we've talked a little bit about, how much I love the performances. I love the look of the film. Such a unique movie. I am not a big fan of that filmmaker. He's still, even in this film, has moments of animal cruelty that he just has to put in every single one of his movies that I...
Yorgos Lanthimos. Yorgos Lanthimos.
But I love the world he crafted, the landscapes, the skies, you know, just how unrealistic the skies are, but how beautiful they are. So that was a very interesting film. That one could be close to what I would consider my number 6, just on a craft level and performance level. And I even really do kind of like the story, but I think it runs on a bit too long, the entire film. So I think if I'm going to put something at my number 6, I'm going to go with Godzilla -1. Lived up to the hype that everyone was giving it before I got the chance to see it. And what I loved about it, what you never really expect going into a Godzilla movie, is great human characters and a really compelling story told through those human characters. I did not love the special effects the way some other people have been raving. Oh, look what they did for this low budget. Okay, I give them a lot of credit for that. But there was a lot of moments within the special effects and the images that you see of of Godzilla that took me out of the film a little bit. That it was like, okay, this is lower budget special effects. I can watch it and enjoy it, but I still was taken out of the film a little bit with, like, it kind of looked like stop motion at times. But the whole time it was like, okay, this is low budget. This is, you know, give them credit where credit's due. But what really grabbed me was the human story. I loved all those characters. I love the little family unit that's built throughout the film that isn't a family but comes together to become one. That was a really touching as a father. Like, the scenes with the little girl were breaking my heart at times. So I think Godzilla, if I was really gonna line these out as like, what is the one movie that just missed the top 5, I'm gonna go with Godzilla -1 as my number 6.
It's top 5, baby. Hell yeah.
2023's top 5.
All hail Takashi Yamazuki. Godzilla
-1.
Godzilla -1. He wrote, directed, and did the special effect, and was one of the big special effects guys on it. Best Godzilla movie ever made, in my opinion. This one actually takes it seriously, but not at the detriment of the excitement and the entertainment. I'm with you 100%. The family drama is just spectacular. You actually give a shit about people for once in a Godzilla movie. And I had already done this on The Leftovers, but I said, I love it when Godzilla is just a mean motherfucker. I don't like the Godzilla's here to save us shit.
No,
he is so evil and force of nature in this. And you actually feel tragic. You feel the tragedy and you feel sad for what's happening to this city that's trying to rebuild itself after World War II. And I think setting it at that time, it was purposely done to showcase like people trying to rebuild what they've lost and then having it all destroyed again. It's always been an allegory for nuclear war. Mm-hmm. And it really hits. A lot of people are calling this the sequel to Oppenheimer, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, it would be interesting watching back.
Josh and I saw this movie in the theater, and we were just kind of blown away. The old music that they used, they went back to the Toho. Like, it's so cool, and he's so terrifying in his face. And I do like the way his little things pop out of his, a lot of people that looks kind of mechanical. I'm like, no, it looks like they're just aching to come out,
Yeah, no, I thought that was a cool aspect.
Yeah, so number 5 for me, Godzilla -1. I just couldn't believe how good of a movie it was for being a Godzilla movie. And for $12 million, I mean, Hollywood should learn something from this. They won't, but they should.
Everyone loves it. Everyone loves the man, Mr. John Wick, Chapter 4. My favorite of the John Wick movies, for sure. I like the villain. I like the dialogue throughout. Like, John Wick movie is not something... John Wick doesn't even have any dialogue throughout 4 movies almost.
No, but he doesn't.
The movie is filled with some wonderful lines and some great banter between various characters.
Yeah.
It's got great moments of tension that aren't just in the action scenes. There are also moments of tension throughout the dialogue and things like that. The look of every John Wick film has always been awesome, but this one just kind of blows my mind with the color palette and just how they brought this movie to screen. I feel like all these movies, like Mission Impossible and 007, are copying John Wick at this point in terms of their look and trying to get that neon feel and freaking Dragon's Breath shotgun scene shot from overhead is one of my favorites. I love the samurai scene when they're in the Japanese hotel. John Wick is still, after 4 movies, still a compelling, awesome action hero. I want more John Wick. I'm not sure exactly. Like, I kind of felt like the way it ended, they did leave it open for him to not truly be dead, but we'll just have to see. John Wick's a lot of fun, so that's where it's landing for now.
Yeah, and despite Keanu Reeves' lack of dialogue, you see how much work he puts into this character, and like, it's incredible. Like, there's a lot to be said about that. Like, yeah, dialogue, it's very, you don't really get to know him as far as his sense of humor that much, but you get to know him as just this driving force, and like, that's all because Keanu Reeves is so dead set on doing as much as he can for a 60-year-old man. And like, when you see some of the stuff he does to make this come to life, I give him so much props for that. And that's why this movie, Extraction 2, is why there should be a best stunts in the Oscars. I don't know why there's not. I don't understand it, but again, whatever, awards, schmords. Cord Jefferson taps into the mind of a writer who just wants to be a writer and not labeled as a black writer. It's American fiction, and I kept this one kind of quiet because it was a recent one that I saw, and it just was amazing. I thought it was incredible. Jeffrey Wright's amazing, as he is in pretty much everything. I felt this movie had Sideways vibes, and since you've seen it, would you agree that the score is very similar to Sideways with the jazz? Josh and I almost had to look. We did look it up. Right? It wasn't the same person, but it was so similar.
I don't think I picked up much on the score. Like, it didn't make a big impression to where I really.
It did for me.
Score.
Yeah, it did for me. But yeah, Jeffrey Wright is just so. He's one of our finest actors working today, hands down. And Sterling K. Brown is great in this movie as just great as his brother. I love the family dynamic. I hate what happens to certain members of this family because you just get to know them. But just the fact that Cord Jefferson, the writer-director, wanted to make a movie to sort of make fun of a certain group of people who are trying to be saints to everyone in the to be saints to everyone in the world is what I love. It's so smart. Like, what was it called? Plantation Annihilation, one of the books. And he keeps going to these people going, you know what? I want to call the book Fuck. And they're like, you know what? Okay, that works. That's great. Like, it's so goddamn funny. And it was definitely one of the funniest movies of the year too. But I thought American Fiction was great. I love movies about writers. I love Jeffrey Wright. Yeah, it's one of the best. So number 4 for me is American Fiction.
And we don't want to give away what character they're eulogizing, but that was one of the funniest eulogies I've ever seen.
Oh my God. Are those human remains?
Well, when it's like, I hope I passed under the heaving thrust of an Idris Elba, and if not, the heaving thrust of a Russell Crowe.
It's just, there's so much great dialogue in that movie.
With those lines. We're gonna take a trip out to Asteroid City.
Oh, I'm so glad, because I knew it was in your top 5 because I didn't hear the honorable mention.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Got it.
Wes Anderson comes through again. He can be a little hit or miss for me, but the reality is, I think when I really look at his whole filmography, he's way more hit than he has ever been miss.
Oh yeah.
And this one was great. I thought this one was up there with, like, it reminded me of Moonrise Kingdom a bit. It reminds me of anything he's ever done, but at the same time, very specifically out of all of his filmography, I think it's closest to Moonrise Kingdom, which I really, really like from his filmography. So just a wonderful cast. Every character is a Wes Anderson deadpan character, but it works. Like, they're all just super funny, down to every single one of those kids. I loved it. It was quirky as always is. Just has all of the things you want from a Wes Anderson movie. I believe, if I remember correctly, I saw this in the theater by myself. Nobody else was in the theater. This is like an opening week that it came out, or maybe 2 weeks in, and there was not another soul in the theater, and I was still laughing out loud. Yeah. And then I watched it again at home, a couple months back or something, when it was free on streaming, and found myself laughing the exact same moments out loud, watching it in bed by myself, and still like chuckling very hard at the same moments. Like, this still hits, even though I've heard the joke already. It's still super funny. This probably should have been in my best comedies, but I also was just kind of keeping it for the best picture list. But yeah, my number 4, Asteroid City.
Yeah, I think that Scarlett Johansson, though she did a voice in Isle of Dogs, seeing her do Wes Anderson dialogue was incredible. She just she gets it. Certain actors get it, which is why he reuses so many actors, And I thought Tom Hanks being okay, that role was meant for Bill Murray.
I heard that.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. It wasn't a super juicy role, but I love that movie. It was really heartbreaking to pull it out of the top 5 because it was right there, but I just, I
think you said it was like your number 6 or very close.
It was my number 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. So for me, number 3, it's Amelie meets Nymphomaniac. Poor Things is a special kind of viewing experience in the best possible way. The story itself, while watching it, reminded me a lot of Siddhartha, if you've ever read that. Finding Zen, finding the Buddha, hitting the best marks and experiencing awfulness in order to find balance in your life. And I feel that is what Bella Baxter's entire journey is all about. And Emma Stone just gets it. She owned it. She showed a lot of skin. She showed a lot of facial expressions. None of it was gratuitous. It is what the story's all about. Mark Ruffalo, best performance I think he's ever given, in my opinion. I've always been kind of milquetoasty when it comes to Mark Ruffalo. Yorgos Lanthimos. I said it right this time.
Sounds right.
To me, this is his best movie because I haven't enjoyed his other movies quite so much for a lot of the reason that you said, animal cruelty and things like that. This movie's just a gorgeous film. Best production design of the year. Quirky story that's so refreshing, unique, colorful, creative. I love how Willem Dafoe looks like the Frankenstein monster, but he's supposed to be the Frankenstein doctor. I felt the fisheye and some of the way the movie was shot felt very German expressionist, and it made me feel like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari viewing sometimes, and I enjoyed that. Maybe a little excessive, but man, some of the stuff on the boat and like you said, the backgrounds, a lot of it was almost like dreamy Wes Anderson, where it like feels like a stage play in certain regards. But I never thought I would say it, but yeah, Poor Things is number 3 for me. I fucking loved it.
And also like kind of some of his pans that also feel like Wes Anderson at times. The way he just pans the camera shows up in both of those films, but it's better used in Poor Things.
Well, I think the setting lends itself better to it.
Okay, my number 3, I do not have a DVD for it. I hope they make a DVD for it because I want to own it. We've talked about it a few times already. It is The Holdovers. And I love, there's another poster that I can't bring up because it doesn't fit the screen, but it looks very like a very old classic poster from the 80s or the 70s. And that's one thing that I really love about this film is it has a classic feel of like a 70s, late 70s or early 80s movie.
You remember the trailer was shot like a 70s trailer. Remember the trailer?
I don't even know if I saw the trailer.
The trailer is a complete 70s trailer. You got to watch the original trailer. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, no, even the intro of the film has a classic Universal logo, like one from the 80s. And it has like, when the rating comes up, it uses like stuff we've seen when we grew up that they don't use anymore. It's like showing the rating or whatever it is. There's a couple different things they did at the beginning of the movie that are from our childhood. So I do think it was going for that aesthetic, and then clearly like just the production design, the cinematography, the look of the actors and everything. It's all very believable for that era, and they do such a wonderful job with that. We've already talked about how it's got a great screenplay and some of the best performances of the year. The direction is very solid by Alexander Payne. Just right in line with the stuff that we've loved from him in the past. I think you did a review where you called this one of his like masterpieces, and I kind of have to agree with that. It's a movie that I think is going to grow on me. Hopefully I'm going to watch it, at the holidays. This is one I want to add to the possibilities of things that I will pull out at the holidays and enjoy, because it really does live up to be a Christmas movie, and it's got all the feels that you want at that time of the year. It ends on a positive note for most of the characters, but it's a heartwarming, heart-wrenching journey to go through the movie, but also very funny and just a solid movie. This year, as we started the video, I was calling it the barren wasteland of the year because there's very few that I felt lived up to that quality of what I consider Best Picture. I'd say even Asteroid City has some issues with it, whereas like in a normal year, I may not have called that Best Picture, but Wes Anderson can always produce something that, in my opinion, is elevated above some other filmmakers. So I had no issue with that landing in my top 5. But I'd say the top 3 is really the ones I feel strongly about saying, this is what I look for when I'm looking for Best Picture. And it starts right here with The Holdovers.
All right, moving on to number 2 for me. We did an hour-long review of this, John, with Bobek. It's Oppenheimer. It's a film with so much conviction without giving the audience a stance on anything. Walking that line and being able to tell a story of this subject matter and keeping your own thoughts mostly non-existent is insane. And that's the writing and directing of one Christopher Nolan. He knows how to make an epic movie when 95% of it is talking. That's just how good he is. He knows his editors. He knows his cinematographers. He knows everything. He's one of the best because he knows every aspect of filmmaking. And we talked about this when we did our following first to the best. He just knows how to do it all, and it shows in every one of his movies. This is one of his best movies to date. Time will tell if it's his best movie, but you had said something earlier, and I completely agree. He writes movies that are smart, and this one is a perfect result of, I think, the way people thought of Tenet. I'm sure he was already thinking about doing this movie before Tenet came out. He had to have been, because the production was huge. But people kind of giving him shit for that one because saying like, you bit off more than you can chew. You're trying to be too smart and it doesn't make any sense. In this case, he took a movie full of smart characters and things that are so mind-boggling, that he really loves, because he's a big chalkboard, storyboard type of guy. He loves to just really focus on how he's going to tell his story. And this movie has a little bit of the nonlinear structure, which we love from him, but rarely, and it's easier to tell because you go from black and white. But that helps me, and I'm not going to lie. I'm a student of film. I've loved film my whole life, but I do love when a 3-hour biopic consisting mostly of dialogue lets me know when it's in the past and when it's in the regular part of the movie. I love the decision to actually detonate a real bomb to make this movie and then not let us hear the audio of it. Completely keep it silent. And the way they shot that with the IMAX, like it was something special. And this was one that we did get to see together, and I think we were all just blown away by it. And it's only really number 2 just because my number 1 is my number 1. It's hard to really say. It's magnificent. It's a work of art. It's a genius movie. I love it. So it's number 2 for me.
Okay, so my number 2, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is a dual pack. It's got both, but there it is right there. Is that a shock for you?
I didn't even have it in an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Wow. No, it's good, but I just didn't even think about it. Wow.
I loved it. I think it's a huge step up from the first film. I mean, the first film I revisited and enjoyed it more than like when we reviewed it, I think, way back in the day. I've kind of fallen in love with the animation. That it stood out as something original the first time, but they've just done some amazing things with it this time, and a variety of different animation styles kind of being thrown all together. They've made sense of the whole Spider-Verse. Like, they've made a multiverse movie better than any of these other attempts that have tried. Well, I know there's Everything Everywhere All at Once, but that's a very different kind of film dealing with multiverse. But when it comes to these true comic book movies that are trying to be multiverse, this one works the best for me. The little cameos and little moments where you see other Spider-Men that we've seen from other IPs or whatever were really great. Daniel Kaluuya is like the rock star British punk rocker version. That's really cool. There's like the Indian guy that has kind of a standout scene. So yeah, I love all the characters in it. Many of the small side characters, but obviously our leads. I think Miles Morales is a great character across these 2 movies. They've really built him up with a lot of interesting facets. His home life, his desire to be able to be a hero and fit in with all these other Spider-Men and prove that he deserves the mantle of Spider-Man when really this film kind of has a way of showing that maybe he never should have been Spider-Man. It's a part 1, so it leaves off on a cliffhanger. I like the cliffhanger that it leaves off on, but we'll just have to see how the story finishes off, because it truly doesn't wrap up completely. I love the villains. They're kind of villains. They're kind of anti-heroes. They're other Spider-Men that are kind of working against him or have reasons to not trust him. The Gwen Stacy character is coming along to be very fascinating. This movie focuses a lot on her, where she's not, the main focus of the first film, but she is a big focus in this film, and I'm very interested to see what they do with her character in the next movie. A score can really elevate a movie for me, and this one really stood out to me. It's very bombastic, but in the best way. It's like it really gets the heart pumping and the adrenaline flowing. The movie's very exciting when it gets to its action scenes, very funny with its comedic moments, visually just amazing. I want all animated movies to kind of be in this style moving forward. So yeah, I loved the writing in this movie. Like it really, I think, elevated itself from what you might think on paper of an animated Spider-Man movie. I wouldn't have thought that would be something that I would consider best picture quality, but I think this one, it worked on all the levels that I'm normally looking for. And I really didn't expect it. It was definitely surprising to walk out of this and have that feeling of like, that felt like a best picture quality movie to me. Because I usually feel that walking out of the theater.
So number 1 for me of 2023 is The Holdovers.
Oh, I guess we've talked about it so much, I didn't realize you hadn't talked about it.
Yeah, it's everything I love in a film. You know that from just us doing this channel for so long and knowing each other for 3 decades. Brilliant script, brilliant performances, brilliant direction, and of course, John, Paul Giamatti. I did a big review for this on the channel already, so I won't get too much into it. Three of the best performances of the year: Dominic Sessa, Divine Joy Randolph, and of course Paul Giamatti. It's just, I was so happy to see Alexander Payne. I don't want to say go back to his roots, because I don't even know what his roots are. He always makes very different, unique films. But this is the best movie that he's, even though the Descendants was my favorite film of 2011, this is the best movie for me that he's done since Sideways. And it's not just, yeah, it's probably because him and Paul Giamatti are working together again. I mean, that's just magic. It's fucking magic, you know? So yeah, I love this movie. And like you said, I didn't even know it was going to be a Christmas movie when I saw it. And it just turned out to be one, you know, in its own way. It's not focused on that, but there's some funny Christmas scenes, and it's just such a great movie, and it just made me feel the feelings, man. Like, just everything. This is why Alexander Payne is one of my favorite filmmakers. When he gets me, he just gets me, and he wraps me in so hard. And it doesn't hurt when you get your leading man from Sideways to come back after 19 years of being in one of your movies, to come back and give a performance like this, which just elevates the already amazing script and direction. It's Ben's kind of movie through and through. It's the kind of movie I would like to make, you know? So it's my number one. And I think it's up there with one of my favorite movies I've seen since we've been a channel. I mean, there's a few of them, but it's up there. I really, really did like it that much.
And technically, it's also about a writer. He is a writer.
I said that earlier when I was talking about the screenplay. I'm like, I love movies about writers. Yeah. He's almost like an old man Miles, except set in the past. You know? Yeah. So that's my number one. I love this movie so much.
Awesome.
It gave me a warm hug, John.
Okay, well, speaking of the home stretch, my final movie, I'm sure Ben knows what it is. We've talked about it a few times already on this video. We're going with Oppenheimer, the biggest bomb, probably the best film I've seen since like 2018 to some degree. I like it even better than Nope, which was I really, really liked last year, but I think Oppenheimer, I don't know, Nope is probably more rewatchable just on a fun level, where Oppenheimer really is like, you got to be in the right mindset to want to sit through that much dialogue. But I found it super, super interesting. Every scene, even though it's 3 hours and it's all just a lot of talking in boardrooms and laboratories, there's never a dull moment, in my opinion, in the movie. And a lot of that comes down to Christopher Nolan's filmmaking style. He keeps things exciting, even if it's not an exciting moment of the film. There's still tension to be built. It's got so many wonderful performances that you're always switching from scene to scene. You always have somebody new coming in and kind of wowing you with like, oh, that guy, I love that guy. He's doing great work in this movie as well. Nobody puts in a bad performance in the movie, even down to the small roles. It looks great, and then the score is another one. Like a good score in a movie will help elevate it. Not that Christopher Nolan's movies ever have bad scores. This one is not Hans Zimmer, but it always has that kind of feel that he's done with Hans Zimmer and Ludwig Göransson or something, I think is the name of this guy's. But anyway, just all on a filmmaking level, every aspect of this movie stands out for me as top notch. I just walked out of this saying, this is one of the best experiences I've had in years at the movies, and it was very satisfying. There was no aspect of this movie that I didn't like. Like even in my, the rest of my top five, there's little things maybe that I would nitpick on certain films. There's nothing I can think of that I would nitpick. I think this is definitely one of Nolan's best movies. I have a really strong love for The Prestige and Memento that I probably would not put it over that, but it's close. Like it's maybe top three, at least in the top five Nolan films. And it tells a really fascinating story about a really fascinating person, really fascinating moment in history. I have no doubt that this deserves Best Picture on my list.
Both these movies, The Holdovers and Oppenheimer, though very different, couldn't be more different, are both fantastic in their own right. I think Oppenheimer was my favorite movie up until, well, obviously it was, up until I saw The Holdovers. Clearly, there's things, from someone that isn't in tune with, how they feel about movies themselves and what makes them tick and what makes them emote would be like, well, clearly Oppenheimer's the better movie. It's like, well, I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm saying what's my favorite. There's a big difference there. There's a lot of movies like that. I would say there's several movies better than Godzilla -1, even in my honorable mentions, but it's my fifth favorite.
Yeah, that's why I went with something like John Wick, because it's enjoyable. But I would agree there's a lot of better made movies, although it's a very quality movie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all of them are. Everything we've listed is a quality movie. Take it from us. We know.
We know quality.
2023 is officially over. I mean, it's been over for a month now, but this is CinemaGope. We take our time. So I'm happy to report I really liked this year. I'm also happy to report that John didn't like it so much, because that will give me another thing to put in our future opening videos of him saying this is a desert landscape of a year. Right, James?
James, say it with me. 2023 sucked. Say we drink your cinema.
Oh!